it's particularly important to understand what sort of constituency we are sort of dealing with. If you look at it, now rural, I think it's very clear. We start from Gram Panchayat, which is a body representative of a village. Very neat and clean, 5-6 odd representatives, one fella heading them. You go down to block or Janpat level, there's again a tier of complexity to it. You go to Zilla Panchayat. That sort of, sums up your Panchayat system. And it has parallels in the government. So like for example, in the district level, you would have the district collector, who would also be the secretary of the Panchayat. You would have the district rural development agency, which is, we'll come to it, Congo or Congo. And this sort of works because there is a sort of complete range of what is roughly the civic society, roughly the government, roughly the representative representation of people. And it sort of works. It's been working rather well. Urban, below municipal corporation, do we really have something like a ward council? So we have, councillors from the wards sitting in the corporation, forming the council. You would have different versions in different states where the mayor is directly or indirectly elected. And there's a mayor and council which is more like the cabinet. But that's where it stops. What happens at ward level or the planning unit level if we talk about urban planning? Nothing. What about the neighborhood or area level? There is no area sabha per se. There's a provision of it in the 74th Constitutional Act, but it doesn't really happen. And then you have the RWAs. Let me not start about the problems that RWAs have because of the kind of politics that goes in there. So essentially, we have, a real fractured kind of democracy here. And this is typical to urban. And especially the kind of startups we are seeing here, which are engaging with neighborhood level problems. You don't really have a parallel. You don't really have an institution to go to seek help, to sort of partner, to collaborate. But this is not all the problem. You also have this honeycomb here. So, Gongos, very simply, the best example I can think of is, the District Urban Development Agency, or the SUDA, State Urban Development Agency. It's not an authority, it's not a department, it's an agency of the government. Why do you need that? Then you have the government-controlled companies. This includes all your semi-government, your housing boards, a very relevant kind of entity in case of urban. They work despite the government. They work sometimes in a completely different logic to that of the government. Sometimes they have bigger budgets and bigger kitties of money than the government itself. Municipal government versus housing board, any city. And then, of course, you have parastatal. So I think it's actually belonging here more particularly. So these agencies, they're not strictly state level. They also exert pressures at district level. They have more money than, as I said, municipal governments. So they have a certain agency over and above your municipal government. They further distort even this tier. So this is the kind of fractured democracy we are dealing with when it comes to urban. So you have to be very mindful of this. You have to understand how this is essentially impacting the lack of leadership, frankly, that you find at urban level when dealing with cities. Drawing again a parallel from what we had started. Even funnier is how you have a central cadre of bureaucrats who don't necessarily are trained in managing urban or rural. I think everybody gets a bit of rural in any case because of the collector postings and SDM postings that everybody has to serve. But urban is a different fish altogether, different game altogether. At state level, the same chaps are in fact in the powerful positions, in the leadership positions. You would have the state level cadre, which is usually also at times the IS types, being the municipal corporation heads, which means states exert pressure on municipal all the time. That sort of further limits the powers there. Again, I repeat, you cannot say the same happening here. Here, the sanctity of the office of the district collector or district magistrate is very enshrined in the archaic Indian civil services structure. So that office holds a certain power which is over and above. In fact, until the whole urban panchayat system really sort of came into full force, it was very normal for these guys to actually dissolve urban municipal bodies at their whims and fancies. I've seen that also. Just 10 years back, I think. So that essentially means you're dealing with a weak institution. You have all these chaps also exerting pressure. You have pressure from top, and you have to navigate this kind of really cacophony of challenges. So let me jump straight to what I have discovered in my career. Whenever I tried and bring the government side and the entrepreneur side to sit on one table, it was just impossible. It's okay if you're talking to the investor guys in that room and to the government guys in this room, and to sort of send emissaries both ways, but even to bring them to sit together, except for all these what do you call them, the investor summits, the cosmetic events, it's quite a challenge. And there is a fundamental reason behind it. That's what I believe. The first thing is who you're responsible for. Government is responsible for exchequer. Your shareholders, if you are the big fishes in the startup world of India, your shareholders are actually sitting outside India, in China. So there's a clear disconnect right here, right? The guys are entirely different, right? Sometimes. Of course, the government is very, very inclined on certain procedures, because that has what kept this whole cycle of government running all these years. Whereas for us, efficiency is everything. So when Viraj, for example, was saying that you should have the patience to actually wait it out, to actually, wait endlessly for those meetings and not sort of mind that. The point is, they are not as driven by efficiency as you are. They would rather take things slow, deliberate, than sort of jump into something the way we tend to do, and especially in the startup world, right? I mean, we would, if you don't pivot every 6 months, probably you're not doing anything, right? So, yeah, I think the whole point of that, what is, probity versus returns, what sort of drives these two different entities, and of course, at the end of it, you accrue power or wealth in this case. So there's this disconnect that is coming out of all these underlying factors that we have to be mindful of. Now, okay, this is something that is a fact, but I'd like to also bring out as to how we can empathize with this side of the problem. Can we move to the next one? So, I'm going to really bring down my own dumb version of game theory. So, no, I'm not a sort of game theory scientist or anything. But one thing is, let's start with looking at just a game of chess, right? You need two players willing to play. So a game isn't really a game unless there are people sort of willing to play, right? And you have to have certain common rules. Now, who defines rules in this case? The government. Read up on those rules. As Viraj rightly said, stalemate is a very likely outcome of this game. So, you have to really understand that sometimes your leads will not lead you anywhere. You just have to like drop them or keep them sort of churning somewhere for some time that the leadership changes, or the government suddenly realizes, oh, you know what, it's a good idea to work with startups. So yeah, just sort of make sure that you don't go with the immediate expectation that something's going to come out of your meetings, something's going to come out of your proposals. Yeah, and I think my point on the whole prisoner's dilemma is again the same, that I would say you have to be firm with the government, but at the same time, very unlike, say, working with a private sector counterpart, you just don't really have a play, you don't really have something to scare them by beyond a point. And this especially happens when you work with people who don't really have a reputational loss of the order that would make them do something otherwise. With those people, especially the middle management, you just cannot push them beyond a point. So it's kind of like working with a difficult colleague in the workspace. You cannot, anywhere in this world, push people beyond a point. So you have to realize that, and the sort of threshold of giving up is quite shallow in case of the government. I think the point is important that whenever you go, you have to be transparent about your intentions. When I go do some of my B2G deals, I tell them, look, we don't want any money from you. And there's a clear suspicion around it. They're like, why don't you want money? Aren't you a for-profit business? And I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to make business out of you. I don't want to make money out of you. And it's very difficult for people to sometimes understand. So you should be sort of very open with what your proposition is. And I think at the end of it, yes, the more rounds you have, the more sort of you open up with the actors in the government, the more it sort of makes you connect with them. Sometimes you get good media, sometimes you get bad media. Bad media, you're gone. Even if everything else was going right, suddenly the bad perception around you would make governments to simply drop the contract with you. Civil society, again, sometimes you get some very nice NGOs to work with you, and they got some issue-based consensus with you, but then they are driven by suspicion, they are anti-establishment. If you take them to the same meeting with you to an establishment, this might really sort of ruffle feathers, start fires. And they might also lack realism. Academia, again, it depends what sort of influence they have, what sort of respect they have within the government. There are certain structures. I remember in the JNNURM we would have compulsorily bring in the NITs or IITs respective to that state and sort of put them on evaluation panels, for example. So they became a very strong influence there. And the problem with them is that they got an academic calendar to look out for. They don't really necessarily reserve the time to sort of work with you on a practical level, and it can be very theoretical therefore. I think schemes would just really rush through it. My whole point is just read through the scheme document very properly, understand what are the underlying principles there, at least meet those principles. Whenever you are I think the important point here is that most schemes these days in the urban in particular, they are working on something called the matching principle, wherein the central government puts some money, state government has to put in some money. Usually state government doesn't really have a say. And then you have the local government putting in some money. And I have had instances when my mayors came down to me and told me, look Raj, we are not really going ahead with the scheme because we don't have enough money in our buffers. So imagine this, a very good scheme of the government, and your local government thinks that it's a wasteful enterprise because they cannot match up with the sort of initial monies that have to be put in. it's going for a poof. I work with some cities to actually showcase to them how their own properties, their own assets, their own resources can actually be quantified as contribution in kind from their side. And we were able to actually salvage some of those schemes or relationships between these three tiers of the government. I have had some experience of procurements. I did largely service procurement. So I procured some 360 city development plans in Bangladesh, a lot of GIS kind of procurements, a lot of tech involvement there. Typically, you would find that the least cost, LCM, L1, there are different ways to call it, but that's the sort of underlying principle, which in a way comes from this whole idea that the governments have to be prudent. Now, what has happened over a few years, especially the last 10 years, is that government has too much of money. So this whole golden principle or rule of the government that least cost always wins does not necessarily apply anymore. It's a single vendor situation. Different governments take different views to it. Typically, it's a very difficult situation, even when the procurement guidelines allow for such a procurement. So whenever you go, it's a good idea to have a fair idea of your own ecosystem. Sometimes it's not bad to even suggest to the procurement managers, look, these are also the guys in the same line of business. Might as well do a comparison, we are the best. And then there is this Swiss challenge where governments really don't know what they are supposed to do. They just have a very faint idea as to what they want to be done. And you actually, make this into a challenge kind of round. This, I think, is very useful for startups because it allows you to come up with unique use cases, something that we all live by, right? These unique use cases can actually be illustrated, the benefits benchmarked, and procurement can be guided in that direction. It again is a very difficult decision for anybody to take. Swiss challenge, by definition, are not something that are common in India. But back to this, what I found, whenever I was doing procurements, prudence was always a weightage for me. Frankly, 20% of my points used to go to, how much of money you can see for the government. And don't take it lightly because there are people out there in India who would do anything at any price. Second was obviously the capability part. But because we are working within the government system, somehow there is this whole reputational thing that we also have to factor. So many times you'll find that RFPs define at least 50 crore rupees of turnover. That basically means anybody who's a startup is not really in the play. I mean, how do you define turnover for a startup? It's just not there. So that thing is a problem. And finally, the biggest black little thing here, perception. If they are perceived doing the right thing, they will do it. But all these sort of parameters around it, they are simply to safeguard the perception of the government. So you have to be sympathetic of it. You have to give them unique ways where they can look good hiring you or getting you into the business. So I think I can tell you there is no secret recipe to dealing with RFPs. One important thing is whenever you are dealing with RFPs, and there are some agencies which do these pre-RFPs or qualifier rounds. There are certain agencies like the European Commission, they even go on to do intention of launching a project of a certain nature. The sooner you are into this game, the sooner you know European Commission is going to come up with a sanitation project that involves unique citizen engagement models, you can already start preparing for it. Pre-bid meetings, any of those emails that they give out to you for you to send in your comments. Use them generously. Everybody has to read them. I myself stifled through 500 comments for my pre-bid rounds, and I have responded to all 500 of them simply because we are mandated to do that. As a procurement manager, it's my duty to answer every single query at the pre-bid stage. Proposal writing, I think, is we have to manage this duality, that it has to be well written, it has to have a certain sort of writing quality about it. So sometimes some of the more academic inclined officers actually like to read through your proposals, at least execute a summary of it, write it really well, don't make those grammatical mistakes, because it just goes back to that whole reputation or perception that you're giving to us. But more importantly, the whole proposal has to be split into what I believe are very objective criteria. This you will find by reading critically any of the RFP documents. The value on top, or the subjective criteria, they have to come in as a separate, concise paragraph, not more than a paragraph. If you have some valuable labor, you should be able to communicate it in the smallest possible way. And what I also like to see, and what I also did whenever I made proposals, is a small little master sheet for the evaluator. Wherever there is a matter of just ticking those marks, make it easier for this guy. Actually make those boxes. Actually make those tick boxes. So it's just like making sure that if you have something out there, it doesn't get missed. Especially of the objective criteria, you meet 100% of them. To meet those, of course, and the whole 50 crore criteria and all sort of problems, one important thing again is consortiums and co-bidding. It's a very tricky game out there. There are people who really play the least cost game very well. There are people who really play aggregating all smart CVs or smart endorsements and sort of trading the market out of those. So you have to really sort of think of this again as a game. Think of how by partnering with some, you can nullify some of those deficiencies you have here, and also how it in the end doesn't really drain you out of the minimum profit